Alright guys, welcome to Flav Oriana's MMA show. I'm your host, Flav Oriana, brought to you by Four Corner Sports. Guys, UFC 298 is officially in the books. It was headlined by Volk versus Ilia Topuria. Gotta say, the whole card delivered. The whole card delivered. From the early prelims to the main event. It was the perfect way of how you organize a card. Honestly, the Toronto card compared to this absolutely sucked, right? And now the fight that he had in Anaheim delivered. Co-main event was phenomenal. I gotta say the Ian Machado Gary versus Jeff Neal fight kind of stunk. All right, I'm not gonna talk about that fight whatsoever. You had the curtain jerker. The first fight of the night, Miranda Maverick versus Andrea Lee, right? That fight did its purpose as the curtain jerker, right? We had some debutantes fighting, Oban Elliott versus Val Woodburn. I know Val Woodburn, that was the second fight, but realistically, like, he was just placed on that card on International Fight Week so he could just get obliterated by Bo Nickel, right? So you have, Val Woodburn putting in Oban Elliott. That was the second fight of the night. You had Zhang Ming Wang versus Brendan Ribeiro, right? That was a good fight. You had plenty of good fights, and then you had the feature prelim, which was Amanda Lemos versus Mackenzie Dern, and the first fight of the pay-per-view, the first fight of the main card, Anthony Hernandez versus Roman Kopylov, fantastic. We had Marab versus Henry Cejudo, fantastic. We had a lot of good, memorable moments there. But we're going to start it off with the main event, and my reaction towards the main event. And honestly, guys, like, Volkanovski coming into this week, I was on Ilia Topuria. I will tell you this, I did hedge on the main event because I wasn't sure how this was going to go, right? I was starting to get a little bit nervous on the fact that how things were transpiring leading in to into the week, because before I was banking on Ilia Topuria, right? So I placed a bet on Ilia Topuria. Then I see that Volkanovski, he's swaying everybody that he's going to be able to get this done, and I felt like he was going to get this done. Right, with the whole commercial with Bet Online or whatever it was, Sport Bet in Australia, saying that I'm too old and stuff like that, and then coming out to the press conference in like the old man fit, it was phenomenal. Like, he really fed into that type of stuff, and he was getting a loud ovation, on the ceremony weigh-ins, the press conference, and then when he came into the octagon. It's amazing because this was going to be his 6th title defense, right? And, he fought Max Holloway 3 times. He got 2 title defenses off of him and then beat him for the belt, right? He ends up beating Brian Ortega. Ends up beating Yair Rodriguez, right? Actually, wait. Hold on. Max Holloway won the belt. Max Holloway 2. Max Holloway 2. Yeah, Brian Ortega, right? Korean Zombie, okay? And then after that, you had Max Holloway. And then after that, he faces Islam, which he loses, right? Yeah, Rodriguez. So, yeah, five title defenses. He would have won for his 6th win, right? Against Ilia Topuria, right? And he cleaned out the division that he was in, right? Now he was coming into a new generation of featherweights that were coming into the sport, and this was going to be where I felt like, we're going to have a serious debate whether or not he is the GOAT, right? Because some people have Jose Aldo as the GOAT featherweight, some people have Max Holloway as the GOAT featherweight, others are having the conversation of whether it's Aldo and Volkanovski. Me personally, and I understand that Jose Aldo ended up having, I think, 9 title defenses. It's debatable to me between Jose Aldo and Max Holloway. I'm sorry, Jose Aldo and Alexander Volkanovski. And the reason why I don't put Max in that is because I felt like his reign, his stint wasn't as long enough, right? The thing that I hold against Jose Aldo is He got clipped really badly by Conor McGregor in 13 seconds, right? He's lost to every single featherweight champion that has been out there, right? And I get it that he ended up beating up your Cub Swansons, your Jeremy Stevens and stuff like that. But I just felt that the level of competition that he was facing compared to what Alexander Volkanovski has been facing, in this point, it's just been like a murderer's row. Now, he was going to face Ilia Topuria. Volkanovski fought Ilia Topuria, and Ilia Topuria came in, with his Instagram bio already saying that he, before the fight even happened, 15-0, UFC champion, and onto, whatever, he ended up putting out there. And it was just like a lot of confidence that he ended up displaying right there. And he taking pictures with the belt, saying that he's going to knock him out in one round, then knock out Volkanovski in one round, all right? Volkanovski was given, round one by the judges. I didn't give him round one because I just felt like the leg kicks were really starting to affect Volkanovski, and that was just trickling, to set up for what happened in round two. Ilia ends up landing two, ginormous leg kicks that really staggered Volk. Volk was, utilizing his legs, and I feel like utilizing his legs the same way that Sean Strickland was utilizing his legs, kind of like a jab, to find range and find distance and all that type of stuff. And I felt that, that Ilia Topuria, managed that round well. In round two, he was getting pieced up, and you could see it on his face. He was wearing it all over his face. The damage, the hits that Volkanovski, the angles that he was cutting in and out, making and picking Ilia Topuria apart. Because I felt like in round two, that's what Volkanovski was getting cooking up until his corner was yelling at him, saying, you got to throw volume in these combinations, because you were seeing Ilia Topuria throw 1-2 punch combinations to try to establish some type of a range and stuff like that, and you know that he hits really, really hard, right? But his corner did say it is harder to stop a multiple level combination. And what did Ilia Topuria do? He listened to his coach. He threw a 5-punch combination, and it's really hard to defend that because you're anticipating that it's just 1-2 and that's it. And he just kept on going. He started with the body, then went up high, then tried to go down low, then cleaned them right there with the right punch on the chin, and then try to follow up with a follow-up punch, and it was lights out. Irene, fight was over. Alexander Volkanovski gets put to sleep, and Ilia Topuria manifested and was able to get the job done, and he is going to have the rocket strapped onto him because Ilia Topuria is now the new UFC featherweight champion. Spain has their very first, UFC champion. Dana White was very happy because this is opening up a brand new market that the UFC could tap into and now put fights over there. And he already has said that he is going to have a fight in Spain, right? And it looks like a lot of people are happy because, many people are very interested in the fact of having to go into Spain because Spain's a very beautiful country, has a lot of good culture, has very good food and stuff like that. So, and plus the amount of, recognition that Ilia Topuria was receiving even prior to the fight, getting the who's of Spain, the biggest celebrities in Spain, in Rafa Nadal, Andres Iniesta, right? Sergio Ramos, right? The list goes on and on. He's getting, people that are in the in the acting world, in the football world, in the art world, all praising, Ilia Topuria, right? And these are not just fighters, and these are high level type of celebrities that were praising him, and he put it out there, and it's just like, wow, like, it was, in my opinion, Ilia Topuria had all the weight of Spain on his shoulders, and this guy came in with a beautiful walkout, got into the octagon, did his thing and delivered. And I just feel like Ilia Topuria is going to be a mega superstar, way bigger superstar than what Sean O'Malley, ever dreams of, because Sean O'Malley is very big and popular here in the United States. Ilia Topuria is very big and popular in all over Europe, right? You saw how people were acting in Georgia, right, in the country of Georgia, when they were just out there celebrating at like 5, 6 in the morning, right? staying up to see Merab and Ilia Topuria fight, because those are the two Georgian fighters that were on the card, right? I'm very, very impressed on the performance that was, displayed. I can easily say that Ilia Topuria's next fight is most likely not Alexander Volkanovski, but what should happen is Alexander Volkanovski's next fight should be for the belt, all right? I think Ilia Topuria is going to be fighting the winner of this weekend's co-main event between Yair Rodriguez and Brian Ortega, right? Because, Yair has some type of beef with Ilia Topuria, right? Ilia Topuria does not like Yair, right? He has said in multiple interviews that he would not give Yair a title shot when he wins the belt. Well, he's won the belt, and I know that Ilia is going to have a lot of sway, but you can really build that up right there. You can have it as Spain versus Mexico in Spain right there. And you have a storyline to put along with that. If Brian Ortega wins, I can see that Brian Ortega could get a title shot opportunity, just because how big of a name he is and how many people, recognize who he is, right? It just sucks because Max Holloway is fighting at UFC 300 against Justin Gaethje, and that would have been the unanimous selection to have Ilia Topuria fight in Ilia's first title defense. Volkanovski, look, I really do believe that Volkanovski does need to take some time off. I was questioning whether or not, will he be affected by him getting knocked out by Islam Makhachev, right, back in October. And that was 4 months ago, or 3.5 months ago. And I just feel that may have lingered onto it. I would have loved if, after him defeating Yair Rodriguez, Volkanovski, him fighting Ilia Topuria, taking from July to December, where they were originally targeting that date for. Now, the problem is that, you run the risk of, it could have made it a lot easier, for Volkanovski. He could have won against Ilia Topuria, because I felt like that was the direction that he was going towards in the fight that he had on Saturday. If he would have had it in December, he would have been healthier. He would have never experienced that knockout. His brain and his body would have been able to, withstand maybe, the blows that Ilia was throwing towards him, and not feel like you're rushing to recover. And let's say Volkanovski would have won in December against Ilia Topuria. Now this could have, reverted into now having Islam versus Volkanovski as the main event at UFC 300, but that didn't happen, unfortunately, and now we're living in a world where Volkanovski, in my opinion, needs to take the rest of the year off. And the reason why I say that is because Volkanovski already got knocked out and put to sleep twice. That is not good for the head. That's not good for the body. And I really do believe that he does need to take some time off, and recalibrate. Let us miss you, because if you're putting yourself constantly out there, we're just really expecting on what to happen. So, what's next is, I just think Volkanovski doesn't fight until the end of the year, maybe, as early as December, if anything. Take the rest of the year off. I think his brain needs to, rest up and stuff like that, and I just think that he's not in no way that he should be fighting other than fighting for the belt. And I just think that Ilia Topuria is going to be busy. Let him defend the title a couple times and then build it back up, where Volkanovski makes his grand return, try to reclaim the belt. Moving on to the co-main event. And I know I sprung off almost 13 and a half minutes about the main event. Paulo Costa versus Robert Whittaker. We haven't seen Paulo Costa since he beat Luke Rockhold in Salt Lake City. Robert Whittaker, we haven't seen him since International Fight Week of last year, where he ended up getting starched by Dricus du Plessis. Now, Whittaker says that he felt like he didn't take the DDP very serious, and that's bad on him, because he should have been able to do better. My whole thing is, now you're motivated. You got Paulo Costa, who wanted to fight Whittaker, right? Because he wanted to fight a big name. And Costa, he's been holding out, trying to finagle his way into a title shot. And he almost did that, because, man, in round one, when he ended up, doing that swinging back kick, and it hit Whittaker right, the heel ended up hitting Whittaker right in the chin. If there was an additional 10 more seconds, Paulo Costa would have been walking out of Anaheim as the winner. All right, and he would have been setting himself lined up to fight Dricus du Plessis, but unfortunately, he ended up doing that spinning heel kick way too late in round one, and after that, Whitaker was just cooking, cutting in and out, typical Whitaker stuff, and Whitaker ended up cruising to victory. I think Robert Whitaker is by far one of the best middleweights that's ever set foot on the planet. Unfortunately, I just think that the way that he ended up getting knocked out by Dricus du Plessis, I feel like he might need maybe 1 or 2 more fights left. I also do feel like Robert Whitaker is already, entering the down part of his prime, and is starting to show. Whitaker has endured so much damage. I felt like those 2 Yoel Romero fights really took off a lot of years off his prime. Him getting knocked out by Israel Adesanya also took out from his prime as well, and it didn't help with the whole Dricus du Plessis thing. So I think that we are starting to see the downfall of Robert Whitaker. Paulo Costa, I've always felt like he's been very overrated, right? He's beaten up on very bad competition, and a lot of his highlight reels are during the Reebok era. We are well beyond that Reebok era. I think we are about 4 years into the Venom era, and I don't think that Paulo Costa is as big of a name as he is, right? And, as he looks like Hercules and stuff like that, I just don't see Paulo Costa being able to get himself anywhere near a title shot, just because he beat up so many cans on the way getting up to where he wanted to be at, that the competition has gotten stiffer and more competitive, and I just don't think that Paulo Costa is going to be able to, stop somebody. We already saw what happened when he fought Marvin Vettori, and he got his ass kicked, even at light heavyweight, because that's Costa refused to cut weight. So it's unfortunate, but yeah, Whitaker, I think he needs 2 more fights, but I also feel like he's on the downfall of his career. And Costa, I just think that he's overrated, and I don't think that he's ever going to get a title shot. I would have been talking about Jeff Neal versus Ian Machado Gary, but I just said that fight stunk, and we're moving past that. Merab Dvalishvili, right, versus Henry Cejudo. Now, Henry Cejudo came into the week saying that he was going to retire if he lost to Merab. Now, Merab, very important for him because he has a lot of weight on his shoulders as well, too, because if he was to lose to Henry Cejudo, that huge giant winning streak that he has currently would have went down the window without having a title shot, and he would have been another Tony Ferguson. Right now, Merab Dvalishvili, I feel like he lost round 1, but rounds 2 and 3, he put an ass whooping on Henry Cejudo, right, to the point where he almost put Henry Cejudo to sleep. But but Merab says that he ended up getting distracted by Mark Zuckerberg because he was sitting on cage side row, and Merab was talking smack to Zuckerberg. Zuckerberg was enjoying it, clapping, and really embracing everything like that. And I thought that was phenomenal right there. I really do feel like Henry Cejudo really bit himself in the ass when he ended up retiring in May of 2020 during the pandemic. And that was his ploy on trying to get, more money out of the UFC because he wanted a better contract. And he felt like he was getting underpaid. And I felt like that wasn't the right time for him to employ, a negotiation tactical strategy, right? Because it was the pandemic. It was actually the beginning of the pandemic, it felt like. And nobody wanted to see Henry leave, in the aspect of that manner. It was crazy because Henry was the first fighter to headline an ESPN event in the Barclays Center, right? Save the flyweight division. Fast forward a couple years, claims double champ status, retires, doesn't warn the UFC that he's going to retire, and they never like that when a champion retires and tries to come back, and not be very sincere about it. Henry wanted to, start a family and everything like that, and I feel like Henry Cejudo is just not loved by the UFC anymore. Whatever he did to, save that division, UFC has already looked beyond past that. It's just like, thanks for doing this, but, we already know what you did, this was, and you burned us, in a very, very important card. Cejudo ended up losing to Merab. He put his gloves down in the middle of the octagon, and Michael Bisping never gave Cejudo the mic. And I think Cejudo was anticipating that he was going to get the mic so he can try to retire, in front of a crowd. But Dana White said on the press conference that he was like, look, you had your opportunity to retire. You came back. You don't get to steal that spotlight from Merab. And I thought that was very good because Dana has been hard on Merab for not trying to fight Aljamain Sterling, his best friend. And, they were able to stick it through, Aljo going up to 145, Merab staying at 135. And that was very good to hear that Dana says that with Merab winning, Merab will be the next fighter to fight for the bantamweight title after Sean and Cheeto. So I thought it was perfect. Where does Henry Cejudo go? I don't know if he's going to hold his word saying that he's going to retire or not. I think he really wanted that moment. But the fact that Dana ended up taking that moment away from him, I think that's really going to bite him. Merab, Merab should just hold still, wait to see if what happens between Sean and Cheeto next month in Miami. And then, lastly was Fluffy Hernandez versus Roman Kopylov. Excellent way to start the card. Fluffy Hernandez is pretty much Mexican Khabib. He took down Kopylov down multiple times throughout the fight, and then round 2, took him down, smothered him, and then choked him out, and that was that. But guys, card was phenomenal. It was easily like a 9.2 out of 10. Definitely will tell anybody to watch it if they haven't seen it. But Ilia Topuria, this man is a superstar. Rob the Wallace, really, he is going to be fighting for a title, all right? And he has another, gate that he can open up to like Georgia and stuff like that. Whitaker and Costa, I felt like that should have been fight of the night. Unfortunately, that wasn't. They gave it to Lemos versus Nerd. Totally disagree with that. But that's that. Look, guys, thank you for tuning in. Thank you for tuning in on my reaction and my opinions and thoughts on UFC 298. And then next week we are off to Mexico City. UFC Mexico. UFC is going to Mexico City, and that'll be headlined by Brandon Moreno versus Brandon Royval. The rematch, part 2, right? And then you got the co-main event, Yair versus Brian Ortega. Again, part 2, or you can say 1.5 because that fight really didn't get started at all. I was there in attendance for that first fight, and all you just see is Ortega's shoulder popped out within the first minute. But yeah, guys, until then, I am Flavio Rihanna, and I will see you guys next time. Peace, guys. See ya.